The USDA has not opened a formal investigation just yet, but is looking to see if the Animal Welfare Act was violated. Elaine, the last time the Cincinnati Zoo was inspected by that agency was back in April.
Jamie, how much of a timeline do we have? Was the boy unattended, do we know? And did the parents immediately realize their son had fallen in?
Well, there's been a lot of different reports from witnesses here on the scene. And as you heard in the story, it turns out the little boy is 3. The zoo thought maybe he was 4. He's turning 4 later on this year. But this toddler ended up getting away from his mother at some point. Witnesses on scene had heard some people having an argument, the mother and the son supposedly, where the mother's saying, "You're not going in," and he's saying, "I am going in." He's having a very toddler-like fight with his mother. Just a few moments later, witnesses ended up hearing a splash. That's when the little boy fell in. One person said she thought it was less than a minute that she heard that splash where the little boy went into the water in the pit there. And then the gorilla ends up coming out of his cave and spots the child and goes over to him. So it sounds like that happened with just a matter of minutes. Now, the action that was taken happened about 10 minutes from start to finish, where they had to go ahead and shoot that gorilla.
So that answers my next question about how quickly the zoo decided to kill the gorilla instead of tranquilizing it. It sounds like 10 minutes.
It was about 10 minutes, and I can tell you, when talking to zoo officials over the last couple of days, they've really stood by the fact that they shot this gorilla. They said that they had to do that because in that time frame of 10 minutes, the gorilla ended up getting so agitated that they were terrified that at 450 pounds, if they shot this gorilla with a tranquilizer, that it would take a long amount of time for the tranquilizer to take effect. You then have a small child, a 3-year-old, with this 450-pound gorilla, and as zookeepers said, they've witnessed this gorilla take a coconut in one hand and crush it. So the last thing that you would want is a agitated gorilla, then more agitated by a tranquilizer in that type of situation. That's at least what the zoo is saying. Now, a number of animal activists are saying that that was the wrong move to make, that they should have tried to tranquilize it rather than killing the animal.
So, I guess the question now is there's also questions about the barrier that was set up there. What are authorities saying, if anything, about that, and what are they looking at about whether or not enough was done to prevent this from happening in the first place, a child getting into an exhibit?
So we do know now that the USDA hasn't opened that formal investigation, I said, but is looking into that because the Animal Welfare Act, if it was in fact violated, it would mean that someone would be able to get over a barrier and come in contact with one of these animals at the zoo. So that's what they're going to start looking into. And then if there is an investigation, they'll go ahead and open that formal investigation. But it's one of those things right now that it's still in the very early stages. The zoo has kept the gorilla exhibit closed down for the last few days. They do hope to reopen it Saturday. They say, in their opinion, that they are meeting all of the requirements that are necessary under guidelines, and that it's one of those things that it just happened that the small child was able to get through all of the barriers, but it's something that hasn't happened in 38 years here at the zoo. So they're looking at potential changes, but the hope is to open by this weekend.
All right, Jamie Yuccas at the Cincinnati Zoo. Jamie, thank you.